That's twisted.
This is Mark McNease in New York City with my co-host,
Rick Rose in Shreveport, Louisiana.
And you're listening to The Twist. Welcome to another Twist, everyone, America's only clothing optional podcast. This is our 20th show. Wow, Rick, we're just...
Wow, happy 20.
Yes, and we got some listeners these days, too, which is really nice. We were off last week because I needed some downtime. Now, by the way, downtime is actually goes back to machinery. When a machine needed downtime. So if you think about that, maybe we need a word that's not so clinical. But I needed downtime. I'm sure you did too. So we went off to Rainbow Mountain and had a good ass time. And I won $300 on a penny slot.
I'm very happy for you.
Woo.
It's fantastic.
I can pay
That's
our
a lot
intern.
of pennies.
Our interns are going to get like $50 this month.
A little bonus.
Yes, loving us is their big bonus.
That's awesome. Well, yes, Mark is in New York today. I'm in Shreveport, Louisiana. I was just about to hop in my car and drive down to Lafayette, which is 3 hours south, down parallel to New Orleans. They're having a big po' boy festival, their first ever po' boy festival. For those that don't know po' boys, just think hoagie or think sub sandwich, but they're similar to that. But they're, of course, Louisiana style with fried oysters or alligator and all that good stuff. But I decided to stay local. I got a lot to do. And tonight, Mark, I am going to see the Jacksons at the Horseshoe
Oh, my
Casino.
God. With
Speaking of
Michael?
casinos. Well, it's Jackson 4 now.
Hologram Michael.
It's the Jackson 4. I know, maybe they will. Actually, one of the publicity shots they use is inclusive of Michael. So maybe I'm in for a surprise tonight. I'm not sure.
And by the way, I know you're sad about missing the po' boy, but you got the Poke Salad Festival coming up in May in Shreveport. So
my God, Mark, you are so into Shreveport these days. Because
I am. I know what's going on. And I want to just quickly plug my mysteries because I got to pay for all the stuff I do. Kyle Callahan Mysteries, the Pride trilogy. There's 3 books that make up the trilogy. I put it out as a single book in December, and it was number 1 in the LGBT mystery on Amazon last week for a couple days.
Fantabulous.
Makes me feel good.
It should make you feel good. Onward. So we got some red lines.
We got the red lines. Here we go. Cue music.
Beep, 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 beep.
By the way, happy April 2nd, everybody. No joke. I don't get the whole April Fool's thing, but it's done. By the way, on Jeopardy, it was so bizarre. I do got to say this. Frank and I were watching, and Trebek comes out without his pants on. And then like an instant later, he's got pants on. And I said, did you see that? So we reversed it. And then they were doing like all these weird things throughout the show. And Frank said, oh, it's April Fool's Day. Okay.
I know. I think it's just a holiday that's gone awry. But anyway.
Yeah, so we got some big topics today coming up, too. But let's do the red lines. We can't ignore politics. It's huge, and it will be. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, yeah. HRC got into the mix, endorsing Mark.
Oh, they sure did.
Mark Kirk. I'm slipping here on my red lines, but it's okay. I'm tired. Yeah, HRC. Man, do not donate, and please stop with the equal signs. I don't know if you use it or not. I've never liked it because it's a brand. It's like wearing Coca-Cola on your shirt or putting a Coke logo on your Facebook page. The equal sign is an HRC brand, and I am not their brand ambassador. Okay, here we go. Deep dives. Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards is rescinding. Did he do it yet? I thought he did it. I thought I read that he did it. But anyways, he's going to rescind an anti-gay executive order issued by his predecessor, Bobby Jindal. Quote, as far as Jindal's religious liberty order, the governor intends to rescind it in the near future. His press secretary, Shauna Sanford, said Jindal, a Republican who once sought his party's presidential nomination, issued the Marriage and Conscience Order, which bars the state from taking punitive action against an individual, business, or nonprofit group in accordance with their religious beliefs. Much more on that later.
He hasn't rescinded it yet, just so you know.
Okay, but he will. God bless him. Susan Sarandon said in an interview she might sit out the election if Hillary is the nominee. We're going to talk about that, too. She was Ralph Nader's National Steering Committee co-chair back in 2000. The actress and activist has been a powerful surrogate for Sanders on the campaign trail, and during an interview with Chris Hayes on MSNBC, she said she doesn't know if she can bring herself to vote for Clinton if it comes down to it. So, enjoy your privilege, Susan. Big gay news this week. Under increasing pressure from major corporations that do business in Georgia, Governor Nathan Deal vetoed a bill that would have curtailed the rights of Georgia's LGBT community. House Bill 757 would have given faith-based organizations in Georgia the option to deny services and jobs to gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender people. Of course, he went ahead and passed that on in Mississippi and North Carolina. But speaking of, Mississippi is poised to pass the most aggressively anti-LGBT law in the country. This is all gay news this week, isn't it? Allowing pretty much anyone to deny services to LGBT people on religious grounds. This includes allowing clerks to decline issuing marriage licenses. Supposedly, they have to have somebody else there who will. I don't trust that. And a law requiring transgender people to use the bathroom coinciding with their birth certificate. I wonder, though, I wonder if Mississippi refuses to issue revised birth certificates. Some states won't do it.
I don't know. It's just a big old mess.
It's horrible, and it's hateful.
Well, you hit on two things we're going to talk about. One is, of course, we're going to talk about these hateful laws, and then we're going to talk about politics. We're going to talk about the update with the election, because just so you know, on Tuesday, of course, is the Wisconsin primary, which, Wisconsin's kind of always been in the middle of some interesting politics, and they say that this could be the election that has it really makes a decision for the Democrats and the Republicans. So we'll see.
We'll see. I think even if Trump loses, it's gonna be hard to disappoint his supporters. So I'm not sure that if he loses Wisconsin, it's over. I find that hard to believe.
I don't know. There's and since we started the topic, you're done with the red lines, right? We're dug deep. Now let's talk about politics and go back to the other bigger issues that are really relevant. Although this is too, the hashtag Never Trump movement could have a big day in Wisconsin. They are saying, though, there's 42 delegates up for grabs. It's always complicated understanding super delegates, they're all playing in this election heavily. And I think that's what we're talking about. But with 24 awarded by the district and 18 going statewide, if Cruz wins by a small margin even, he'll get those 18 state delegates, Mark, and likely a good portion of district level delegates. That would probably keep Trump below the level he needs to actually have the majority before the Republican convention. That's why it's so critical. So I see it a little differently. I think Cruz is going to take it, and I think especially with all this, women being punished thing for abortion, let's not go there, but that whole thing kind of started this spiral for Trump. And I think what's going to happen is you're going to find the actual convention to be where all decisions are made, and it's going to be very, very interesting this year.
It is, and luckily for Cruz, the Republican National Committee will not allow open carry firearms at the convention. Imagine that.
Can you imagine?
So where are we going? Where are we headed?
Well, just want to make a comment, too, that, still on that subject of politics. Our current president did come out. He was speaking at the Nuclear Security Summit. I think 50 countries were there Friday, and he basically came out and said that Trump does not know his stuff. He said that Trump's comments tell us that the person who made the statements doesn't know much about foreign policy or nuclear policy or the Korean Peninsula or the world generally. I love that comment by our president, speaking and reacting to Trump's proposed withdrawal of U.S. troops from Japan and South Korea. Can you believe that he even suggested such a thing? I mean, I am all about, I am not about war. I'm not about weapons and all that stuff, but there's a reason those troops are stationed there. Having lived in Japan,
well, we differ
threat.
There. We differ there.
So you think Trump's right? Get them out.
Yes, I don't think they should have nuclear weapons. I don't think Japan and every other country should have nuclear weapons. But World War II was a long time ago, and we forced. See, we're getting way off track here. We essentially forced Japan and Germany to rewrite their constitutions in a pacifist manner that prohibited them from having troops. And I think Japan should defend itself. It did perfectly well attacking China, invading, Asia. Let them defend themselves. We shouldn't. Ultimately, I don't think we should be there. We're not. It's not our responsibility. World War II has been over since 1945. Mm-hmm. That's my opinion.
I just don't know that. No, we're going on. We're going at it. Going at it, baby. I just don't know that you can do it overnight like that without.
No, not overnight. Not overnight. Just give them a neutron bomb or something and get it over.
It's terrible, but yeah, it's interesting. So we'll see what happens there on the other side of the table, on the Democratic side. Yeah, you bring up Susan Sarandon and you bring up, now they're saying Sanders voters may not turn out for the real election and blah, 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 blah. But it's interesting, though. His polling numbers are better than any candidate or president from either party. Some numbers that were put up by your favorite HuffPost pollster last week. It said that Bernie would beat Donald Trump by 52-41. If he was going head-to-head against Ted Cruz, he would beat him 51-41. And versus Kasich, it would be Bernie 46 to Kasich's 44.
Okay, so
anyway. Who knows?
If he gets the nomination, I have to vote for him. I'm just still not convinced he's going to win. He would win the general,
but by
especially. I mean, especially if he's not up against Donald Trump. What if it's Sanders versus somebody else, and it's not, because everybody now seems to be assuming that Donald Trump's going to be the nominee. What if he's not? You think Sanders is going to beat somebody that's not so nuts?
Well, that's a really good point, but everybody's also assuming that Hillary's got the Democratic thing, which I do too, but we'll see. I mean, it's very likely how I think the Democratic side is going to play out. I really believe that Sanders may win the popular vote, and then the superdelegates come in, and I think the few superdelegates that he has will actually go and support Clinton. So I think she will ultimately get it, but it'll be an interesting twist. It'll be his superdelegates going over to her side.
Well, and from what I'm reading, New York is actually in play between Sanders and Clinton, which I didn't think it was going to be. So my vote in the primary, whoever I vote for in the primary, I need to be prepared to vote for in the general, because unlike 2000, even though I was ragging on Susan Sarandon, I knew that Gore was going to take New York by a wide margin.
Landslide.
So I voted for Nader. I voted for Nader because it was a protest vote. I knew Gore was going to get it. But if it had been a tight race, there's no way in hell I would have voted for Nader, which is what they did in Florida, and it gave the election to Bush. So I'm just saying, those of us in New York, it's apparently going to be very close. So I really need to think who I'm going to vote for.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I was in Wisconsin at the time of that vote, and I voted for Nader. So this is very interesting that we both had this happen. But it was funny because my best friend, who's since deceased, Ilse, who you knew, Ilse Holzer, wonderful artist, she convinced me that she said, let's just cross each other's votes out, Rick. We'll both vote for Nader. I won't vote for Bush. You won't vote for Gore. And so she convinced me, and then over dinner that night she laughed because she ended up voting the way she wanted to vote anyway.
She's a traitor. She was a traitor. Most people are.
She was a traitor. Anyway, that's politics. We'll see. It's one day at a time.
And actually, all of our topics today are political in nature. The big one for me, and it's tied into Sarandon and the whole thing, is equality takes a tumble. That's my tagline for when I post this. North Carolina passed their bill, anti-LGBT bill. Georgia, the governor vetoed it. Mississippi, I'm quite sure the governor's going to sign theirs. And
Virginia, they vetoed, though, too.
Virginia vetoed it. And it's even more draconian in Mississippi. And it's just alarming to me, because I thought after SCOTUS ruled, I mean, I knew there was going to be blowback and revenge and all of this stuff, but I really felt like, okay, I can go to any state in the country now with Frank, my husband, and not worry. But that's not the case anymore. I mean, and it's really makes me heartsick, because I was born in Mississippi. I have a large birth family there, and we were going to go probably in January or February next year, drive to New Orleans and go to Mississippi to see everybody. But I can't go to a state where I don't feel safe. And I think those people on the other side don't understand our perspective. I was telling you in the green room that somebody in my family posted on Facebook about the trans bathroom thing. And it wasn't negative. It wasn't mocking or anything like that. But her understanding of it is what they've been fed by these people, which is that you're going to have a guy in a dress in a woman's room trying to get your daughter. And that's not it. That's not what's going on at all. And none of them are aware that trans men exist. I mean, you can say that till you're blue in the face, and they just don't understand that these bills will require someone who looks like a man and believes them, identifies as a man, is going to be using the women's room because they have to. It's like they're so they just don't. They're not informed. They don't know any trans people. And trying to educate them or inform them if they don't like the word educate is hopeless. I mean, it's really hopeless. But more importantly, these laws, like the one in Mississippi and North Carolina, it doesn't just stop there. And even if it did just stop there, even if it was just a bathroom bill, I would still be outraged, because I support transgender equality. I would still think it was abhorrent. But they go way beyond that. They allow anybody in business, not just somebody at a church. First of all, a pastor has never been forced to marry anybody in this country in 280 years, however old we are. Right. Ever. You cannot be forced to marry anybody. It's never happened, and it never will happen. But they're all alarmed because the people behind this stuff are very cynical and very shrewd. They know exactly what they're doing. They turned all of these LGBT anti-discrimination laws. They made them all about the bathrooms, and they're passing and they're making them much worse.
Well, then, yeah, and you got representatives like this Gibson, a Republican sponsor of the Mississippi measure. He's urging his colleagues to not be intimidated by the media's criticism and highlighting polls that show wide support for it. You're right. It's like instead of going on the one realm, which is, okay, let's begin an education process and help people understand what's going on, because that's really difficult when they're just at ground zero, so to speak. But on the other hand, they're like, oh, don't listen to what's going on. Really, this is something to be concerned about. And if you vote for this and support this and agree with this, you're agreeing with what the masses are saying, that there's been some homosexual agenda, which there's always been apparently, to sway people the other direction. But it is silly that it all amounts really they're finding whatever they can latch onto, but they're not finding success, Mark. I will tell you, in North Carolina, what's happening now is they are actually looking at that. Obama's administration considering whether
the Title IX funding.
Yeah, for billions of dollars in schools, highways, housings. He has not come out with a statement, but when you look at it by what's going on, Anthony Fox, who's the Secretary of Transportation for the U.S., he raised the prospect of reviewing what's going on there and threatening $1 billion a year going to them. Department of Education spokesperson Dory Nolt actually stated yesterday that her agency was also reviewing the law to make that decision about $4.3 billion. HUD, all of them are kind of coming out in their own studies to decide what to do. So,
well, I'll believe it when they do something. Just like these corporations, I'm glad they're making a statement, but I'll believe it when they move their factory out of North Carolina. That's when I'll believe it, because people can talk a good game and they can say this is outrageous. We're so disappointed in this law, but until they fucking do something, and Signorio said that on his podcast. It's great that they're so disappointed in these laws, but if they don't do something about it, states like North Carolina and Mississippi and the others are going to say, you know what? It's all a bunch of smoke. They're not going to do a goddamn thing.
Yeah, but I see that a little differently, because it was the smoke that really cleared the house in those other states that we're talking about. It can't happen overnight, Mark. You can't have a CEO make that decision for his company without it going through a board of directors and without it going through other matters.
Let's see how it plays out then. I'm just saying.
I do too, but
I'll believe it when I see it.
But I think the discussion of it, and I think the discussion of happening in these very U.S. departments, are what really could be the pressure to make it happen. If the discussion's there, it can't happen overnight. The president can't just say, pull the funding. You know that. But by having the discussion, it can scare him, and it has.
So what are they going to do in Mississippi? Mississippi is already a dirt poor state that doesn't have any. Who cares if Coca-Cola is disappointed? They're not going to care. I'm telling you, Mississippi is not going to care. And the more you threaten them, the more stubborn they're going to be.
That can also be the case. You're right. Well, let's move on from that, because I got the final bell.
Well, are you in a hurry? No, I mean I'm glad that we're almost done, but I get really heated. I get heated up about it because I have family in Mississippi, and now I have to find a way. If that governor signs this bill and they don't do something about it, they don't do something to repeal it, because it's a really drastic bill, and it's all about the straight married sex too. These people can deny you a room in the hotel or their bed and breakfast if you're an unmarried straight couple, because it offends their religion. It's draconian, and I was going to say we're not going to go there. I will not take my husband to a state where I am feel unsafe and where I am not respected. It's not going to fucking happen. So I'm going to have to tell my family.
I was going to take this to the final bell because it does relate some good news coming out of Mississippi. But
okay, wait.
No. I'm not
final bell.
Take it back. Since you want
wait,
to stay and play.
Let's make a take it back sound.
You gotta find one. But since you're on this subject, and this will tie it, and then we can go to the final subject. Speaking of April Fools, and speaking of what you're speaking of, there's a woman named Bryn Danahill who's the director of advocacy for Sparta, which is a group of active military people that are LGBT, and she wrote about the heterosexual agenda, and it's a very comic piece if you read about it. She's suggesting, that the heterosexual agenda is the most sinister plot that's ever existed. And by calling it that, it's exactly like you said. These people really are living this heterosexual agenda. She's being a little sweeping about it being larger than life, but it is really what's going on. It's how you raise your kids, what you teach your kids, and what they're ultimately going to believe in before they get to the point to get smart on their own. But when you really look at it, the most documented cases of child abuse are based in poverty and heterosexual activity, which is based on promiscuity and not protection. Whereas if you look at recent studies of lesbian parents, they found 0 substantial cases of child abuse, 0 nationally, when it's lesbian couples raising a child.
Right.
But she goes on to say, hey, now is the time. We need to combat it, and there's ways to do it. You need to put your kids, like she says, but there's hope for our children. Getting them involved in wholesome, appropriate activities can prevent them. Get your boys involved in men's fashion, complete works of the Barbra Streisand, music, get girls involved in fast-pitch softball. She's coming out very strongly against what we see going on.
A bunch of dykey stuff in there, too, with the softball.
You got to get the dykey. So, yes, the final bell. All right, so my final bell is about hope. And it's about that even though some things can be going on, at the same time, things balance out. And I want to give you hope that you and Frank will be able to drive to Mississippi and enjoy a po' boy or a mud bug at some point this year.
Poke salad?
Partly because Mississippi is bordering Louisiana, and I'm very selfish about you coming over. But a federal judge did rule Thursday that Mississippi's ban on same-sex couples adopting children is unconstitutional. What's pivotal about this, it makes gay adoption now legal in all 50 states. District judge's name was Jordan. He issued a preliminary injunction against the ban, basically saying that the Supreme Court's decision legalizing same-sex marriage nationwide last summer includes with it things that are relevant and part of same-sex marriage, that we people are afforded the same rights, including adoption. Mississippi remained the lone holdout until Thursday's readings. Other states like Alabama, Florida, Nebraska, Michigan had similar bans, but were all overturned. The one-sentence Mississippi law from 2000 said adoption by couples of the same gender is prohibited, but as of Thursday, it's gone away, and that's what I'm saying, Mark. All these other bans were there, and finally they're gone, and now all 50 states do allow adoption by same-sex couples.
Although I wonder if Christians who work at adoption agencies can now in Mississippi, when he signs it in North Carolina, refuse.
That's a good point. I think it's
a very good point.
It's going to all factor in. It all comes to play. So as long as there's some steam moving in one direction, there's balance and counterbalance, and I think it's going to be okay. I really do.
You ready for our end quote?
Yes, sir.
It's a very short one today, by the late, great Satchel Paige. How old would you be if you didn't know how old you was? That's the final bell for today and the end of our Twist podcast number 20. We'll be back next week. Thanks, everybody, for listening to another Twist, America's only clothing-optional podcast.
Put your clothes back on. Thanks, Mark.
And your records.
Yes. Bye.